When developing applications, it's important that the security controls be on the server side. HTML controls do not have any inherent security. They're meant to help and assist sincere users in using the application as intended, to save those users time, to keep them from getting frustrated, to guide them on the right path to using the application efficiently. But HTML controls don't provide any actual security. When an application is sending the HTML over to the browser is loading that particular copy of the HTML, and then that HTML itself is essentially loaded into that local browser in the memory on that device. So you can think of the browser as using a copy of the HTML from the application. So any of these controls can be circumvented by a user who's not sincere. The user can simply change their local copy and use the application any way they wish. Let's look at some examples. We use Matilda's client-side control challenge as an application test bed for us to explore some of these ideas. So the idea behind this challenge is you're supposed to take this number and enter it into all the boxes, and then when you get done, you submit the value over to the server, and the server will tell you how many of the boxes you actually filled out correctly. And so for the first box, you can just paste the value in. When you get down to the second box, the box is one of these read-only text boxes. So it's using one of the so-called security controls built into HTML. And for a user who was trying to use the application properly, this would be fine. But this is not an actual security control. So let's take a look. We right-click on the element, inspect element, and we find that the read-only text box is read-only because it has the read-only attribute down here. But we can highlight that. We can just delete the read-only attribute. There's nothing actually preventing us from changing our copy here on running inside of our browser. And then we can paste the value as we want. Similarly, the short text box appears to only hold 3 characters. So if we go on down to the next element, that'll be the short text box. And you can see it has a size of 3 and a max length of 3. So the max length attribute determines how many characters you can type in. Again, if you want to type in more, you can just delete the attribute. And the size just determines the visible length of the box, but it doesn't tell you how many characters you can type in. So the actual size isn't going to be an impediment at all. You can paste the value in there, even though the box is too short to display it. If you wanted to make the size bigger, you just go down and type over top the value. And as we go down these various boxes, we'll see this pattern repeat itself over and over again. The disabled box is disabled because it has that disabled attribute, and once you remove that, you can paste into it just fine. This next one is, in air quotes, secured by JavaScript. So we move on down the line, and we see that it's actually got an attribute of hidden. That's the one right here. And the one below that one is the one actually secured by JavaScript. Okay, so for the hidden one, let's just take the hidden attribute off. And actually, we don't even have to take it off. We can just change the type to text, or really any value, and it'll turn it back into a text box. On the one secured by JavaScript, we can remove the JavaScript code from the element. The vanishing text box is a similar way. It's more JavaScript, and the shy text box is also JavaScript. The search box just has type search. You can just change it to type text. Password has type password. Again, change it to type text. And you get the point. As you go down each control, you can change the HTML behind a control trivially because it's your copy of the HTML inside of your browser, and you have access to the document object model that contains and organizes that copy of the HTML inside your browser. So the lesson here is, as a developer, make sure that you're only using HTML controls to help guide and show the user how to use the app efficiently, how to fill out the boxes they need to fill out as quickly as they can with as little friction as possible to give them a good user experience. But do not expect HTML controls to offer you any security protection of any kind. You must implement your security controls and checks within the application on the server side where the user is not able to manipulate that code directly like they can manipulate the HTML code. Even if the user is not using a browser at all, they can still submit requests over to the server. And they can use any interception proxy to do that. So actual malicious users, hackers, they wouldn't even bother going through all the trouble that we're going through. They would simply type up the raw HTTP request and just send it on over to the server directly. It's actually much easier to do it that way. So again, when you're developing your applications, make sure that you are implementing your security controls on the server side inside of the application where the user is unable to influence those controls and modify the code.